Welcome to Read Poems Every Day. I thought I might keep my unspoken alphabetic theme going, having gone from A.R. Ammons to Emily Bronte to C.A. Conrad, and take a look at a poem I recently read by Rita Dove. Pomade was first published, I think, in Poetry Magazine in September 1984, later collected in this beautiful, beautiful book, Thomas and Beulah. This book includes one of my very favorite poems, Daystar, but this one, Pomade, was brand new to me, so I thought we might spend time with it today. I'll read it out loud and then switch over to a split screen with a Google Doc I've prepared since this is a PDF version of the poem. I can't use Hypothesis. And then we'll maybe just do some bean counting, and maybe we'll keep going with this poem this week. We'll see. We'll see how things go. So this is Pomade by Rita Dove. She sweeps the kitchen floor of the river bed her husband saw fit to bring home with his catfish, recalling a flower, very straight, with a spiked collar arching under a crown of bright, fluffy worms she had gathered in armfuls along a still road in Tennessee. Even then, he was forever off in the woods somewhere in search of a magic creek. It was Willema shushed the pack of dusty children and took her inside the leaning cabin with its little window in the door, the cut-out magazine cloud taped to the pane, so's I'll always have shade. It was Willema showed her how to rub the petals fine and heat them slow in mineral oil until the skillet exhaled pears and nuts and rotting fir. That cabin leaned straight away to the south, took the very slant of heaven through the crabgrass and Queen Anne's lace to the colored cemetery down in Wartrace. Barley soup yearned toward the bowl's edge, the cornbread hot from the oven climbed in glory to the very black lip of the cast-iron pan. But Willema stood straight as the day she walked 5 miles to town for Scotch tape and back again. Gaslight flickered on the cockeyed surface of rainwater in a galvanized pail in the corner, while Thomas pleaded with his sister to get out while she still was fit. Bee balm. The fragrance always put her in mind of Turkish minarets against a sky-wrenched blue, sweet and merciless. Willema could wear her gray hair twisted in 2 knots at the temples and still smell like travel. But all those years she didn't budge. She simply turned one day from slicing a turnip into a pot when her chest opened and the inrushing air knocked her down. "Call the Reverend, I'm in the floor," she called out to a passerby. Beulah gazes through the pale, speckled linoleum to the webbed loam with its salt and worms. She smooths her hair, then sniffs her palms. On the countertop, the catfish grins like an oriental gentleman. Nothing ever stops. She feels herself slowly rolling down the sides of the earth. Oh, wow. Now that is a poem, my goodness. Pomade by Rita Dove. There's her name there. Okay. In case you're curious where this poem appears in the collection's split into 2 sections. The first section, I think, the first section is called Mandolin and seems to take the perspective of the figure Thomas. The second section is titled Canary in Bloom And I think and this is where this poem appears near the end of that section, occupies the perspective, I think, as we learn at the end of the poem, of a figure named Beulah. And so the collection is called Thomas and Beulah. Um, and I think you can then see why it's called that. Sort of split in half between the perspectives of these two figures, and sort of dropping into situations and moments at different times of their life. Okay, so let's count some beans. This is an incredible poem. There are, I believe, you'll see I put little dots in the PDF here. I think that dot represents the 45th line, so there are 45 lines. But now we have the work of maybe thinking out the stanzas. We have a nine-line stanza, followed by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a 7-line stanza, followed by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I think that's a 13-line stanza. Now you might wonder, how do I know that doesn't continue? That stanza that the page break is a stanza break, and that's because my copy of the poem, that 13-line stanza actually cuts across a page break, and so then I see that there's a stanza break here. And so then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lines there. And then I think this is 6 lines. Yeah, 6. Am I mathing correctly? So that's 16 lines, 29 lines, 39 lines, 45 lines. Yeah. So the stanzas are not uniform, at least in line length, or at least in terms of their lengths, how many lines they contain. But they seem to scale up and then scale back. Actually, that's not quite right. I mean, they're about the same, 9, 7, then they scale up to 13, scale a bit down to 10, and then the smallest stanza is the shortest one, returning us to Beulah, who I believe is the she here. And Beulah, who's remembering a figure named Willema. I think I'm saying that right. I might not be. Okay, 45 lines, not uniform stanza length. Line lengths vary. So we have a very long line like window in the door, the cut out magazine, cloud taped to the pane. I mean, that's 16 beats maybe. Might even be miscounting, but then that cabin leans straight away. That's not even 10 beats. So the lines vary very wide, quite widely actually. But you never have, I wouldn't say you ever have a very short line, a sky wrenched blue. I mean, that's not quite right. That line there, 45, 40, 35, 30, line 33 is a pretty short line. And then here too. So you do have the shortest lines seem to be about 4 beats, but then the longest one are more than 15 beats. So you have a pretty wide variation. Okay, punctuation. What are we doing with punctuation here? Uh, comma, commas. Not a whole lot of them, right? You have comma here and here. Here. Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of commas in the poem. Probably missing some as I underline them here. But this can be helpful. So I think we've read some poems recently that are just have a ton of commas in them. I don't know if that's all of them or not, but it is several of them. So commas in lines 2, 3, 12. Note how far that is. 12, 15, 20. So that's line 18, I think, and 21, 25, 30. So line 33. It's really not very many. 5. So that's 38. And then 42, right? So not very many commas. Maybe more periods than commas, I'm guessing. Although we have a dash in line 3 and line 5. Do we have any other dashes? Nope, not that I see here. Period. And then I think it really is periods, apostrophes. We do have an ellipses in line, I think that's line 23, I believe, because I think this is line 30. I think that's line 23 at the very end. In terms of periods, we have quite a few of them, but maybe we should still try to count them. So that's 5, so that's lines 7 and 9 have periods. Then line 13 here, line 16, line 20, line 26, line 29, line 29 right here, then line 30, 33. I think I have this wrong. I think it's line 32, not 33. Might have misspoken earlier too, saying this was line 33. That's line 32. Then 33 has a comma. 34 has a comma. 35 has a comma. So we're seeing short sentences for the first time in the poem. Line 38, 39. Line 38 has a period and a comma in it. Line 41, 42, 44, and we have two of them in line 44, and line 45. So one thing we might notice is that every stanza ends in a period. So there's no, say, enjambment and no sort of syntactic spill from stanza to stanza. Each stanza shores up a syntactic unit, although each stanza contains at least a couple sentences. So this first one has 2 sentences. This second one has 2 sentences, so on and so forth. But then note how many sentences we get in the last 2 stanzas, quite a lot compared to the rest of the poem. In the first 30 lines, we have just a few periods, and then the last 15 lines, we have as many periods, more periods than appear in the first 2/3 of the poem. So, okay. So that indicates the rhythm. Is that even the right word? Sure, let's go with that. The rhythm of the poem, because periods are so important to the arrangement of sound, but also the kind of rhythmics of a poem changes in the last third or so. All right. Do we have apostrophes? I think we do. I thought I saw 1 or 2. Yeah, so we have an apostrophe here where we have Willema speaking, or a memory of her speech. Line 12, so that's line 13, creating a contraction. Line 19 for Queen Anne's lace. Line 21 for the bowl. All these are possessives. Well, these next two have been possessives. And then I think, is that it? No, we have contraction, line 35. That looks like it might be it. I may be missing something there. Um, in terms of typographic graphic variation, you do have italics indicating speech in line 38, and then further up with that first instance of an apostrophe in line 13. So you have two instances of italicized lines or italicized phrases. Make that three, three instances, which in this case is just a single word. Okay. Pronouns. You can tell I'm saving enjambment for later. So you have she, her. Now the she, her can refer to Beulah and Willemma, right? Um, then he, his, which seems to refer to Thomas. Have an I, right? And that's Willemma speaking. A them, which refers to petals. And that's line 15, I think, right here. Hmm. The she. Hmm. Thomas's sister. Thomas's sister is not Beulah, I don't think. Or wait, no. Is Willemma? Oh, Willemma is Thomas's sister, I think. Okay. Well, it's not super clear. Forgetting from the other poems in the collection if that's ever made clear, but I don't know if that's right or not. Okay. In the floor. Yeah, I don't see any other. We do have an it's there in line 41. It's the loam. So this sort of ground beneath the linoleum, right? Okay, so pronouns. So what about enjambment? How are we doing with that? Let's take a look. So fit 2, that's lines 1 to 2. Recalling A, so that's lines 2 to 3. Arching under, lines 4 to 5. Armfuls along, 6 to 7. Then he, 7 to 8. So we're seeing sort of a high incidence of frequent enjambment here. Okay, so it looks like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 examples of 6 instances of enjambment in a 9-line stanza. That's quite a lot. And then all lines in stanza 2 save 1, save 1, and that's line 16. So yeah, children, little, pain, Willemma, fine, oil, all enjambed. About line stanza 3. So all enjambed, All lines in stanza save 2, and that's lines 23, which has the ellipses, and line 29, which is at the very end. But everything else is enjambed. What about stanza? Stanza. All lines in stanza 4 save 3. So that's line 32, the short line there, line 34, and line 39. But everything else except those 3 are enjambed. So 7 of those 10 lines are enjambed. And then the final stanza, despite an uptick in periods here, only 1 line ends in a period. All lines in stanza 5 save 1. And that's line 45. Okay, so the very end. So, okay. So high frequency of enjambment in the poem. But Caesura, where do we have pauses midline? Let's just see. We have in line 2, line 3, line 7. So there's line 2, line 3, line 7, um, line 12 here, which I've underlined, 13, line 18 here, line 20, 21, 20, 26. I'm probably missing some, and remember, Caesura are where you have a pretty strong pause midline, and so you have quite a few of them, 30, 33, 35, 38. You have 2 of them there. Knocked her down, call the Reverend, I'm in the floors. So that line, you have sort of 3 sections separated out by commas. Then line 41, 42, you have 2 of them in line 42. Line 44, you have 2 of them. And that's it. Okay, so you have a sort of note that the uptick in Caesura also follows the uptick in periods, the frequency of periods later in the poem. All right. All right. I wonder, do I have any do you have any reflections on bean reflections? I'm not sure I do at the moment. Um something, let's just say something rhythmic seems to change third of the way through the poem. Increased period caesura frequency. Um, I mean, though enjambment stays relatively frequent, relatively uniformly. Are those contradictory adjectives? Probably. Uniformly frequent. Not a lot of commas here. Hmm. feels like poetry that needs a lot of breath. Hmm. Wonder if that if the shift parallels the return of Beulah's reflections back to herself, away from memories of Willemma. Perhaps, perhaps, could be. All right. Well, I think I'll stop there. Maybe we'll continue with this poem later this week. We'll see. Might come back to it. There's certainly so much here. It's a remarkable poem. Um, I don't know if I love it quite as much as Daystar, but it's a very interesting kind of partner to that poem, and it makes it kind of sense to think of that way since they're actually pretty close together in the collection. Um, you have Daystar, then a poem called Obedience, then a poem called The Great Palaces of Versailles, which I think is also on Poetry Foundation's website, and then Pomade. Okay, or Pomade, not Pomade. Okay. All right. Well, I think that's it. That's it for today. Thanks for spending time with Rita Dove, with me, as I kind of get to know the poem by way of bean counting, as a way to maybe set up the later steps of getting to know the poem. And hey, let's read more poems tomorrow.